Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to Going In Raw, the only pro wrestling podcast you need to be listening to. It is time for Ask Steve and Larson. Ask Going In Raw. That's right. We get these questions directly from the friendos. That's right. If you want to participate, if you want your question read here on Ask Going In Raw, patreon.com/Steve and Larson, $5 and up, or click join on the YouTube and you'll get your question. Maybe your question will make the thumbnail this week. You never know. Crazier things have happened. So Larson, what's the first question we got
First
today?
question here is from the Blind Mask 6419. Blind Mask asks, do you guys think AEW needs a writer room instead of just Tony Khan? More things not involving Blackpool Combat Club or Elite. I think it goes without saying, based on what you've seen from AEW's current product, absolutely yes. I know there's people that help Tony Khan with creative names. We've heard, I mean, obviously Will Washington, Sanjay Dutt, apparently Bryan Danielson's going to help out with Collision, QT Marshall, and then there's Tony
Madison
Khan.
Rain.
That's kind of the...
It's funny because he had, during the media call, I think it was, he listed off like, I don't know, it seemed like 5 to 7 people.
Yeah.
Without even naming it. I think Will Washington was sort of thrown in there at the end, but like it seems like it's maybe a bit beefier than we had originally suspected.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it seems like, though, that all the people who are in Tony Khan's kind of creative brain trust also have other duties within the company. There's not like a dedicated creative team.
Right, yeah.
Near as I can tell.
Yeah.
So I think Sanjay produces. QT obviously handles a lot of stuff backstage.
And he gets himself on TV.
Yes, Bryan Danielson, obviously a wrestler. Will had a whole list of responsibilities listed when he got brought on or came to AEW. So it might behoove Tony Khan to hire at least a couple people to focus entirely on the creative aspect. We were more down on Double or Nothing than seemingly a lot of people were, but seemingly the consensus was it was a very uneven show. And as we've seen with AEW creative in the last year, uneven is a pretty diplomatic way to describe it. There's been some ups, but a lot of downs, and there's been a lot of inconsistency. A lot of storylines that have started that haven't really gone anywhere. And maybe if there's a dedicated creative staff, those issues could be somewhat rectified.
It seems like, and you're right. There should be some sort of, I don't know. And this is from the outside looking in. We're looking at, because let me ask you this question: our issues with Double or Nothing wasn't necessarily, it didn't have any to do with like the wrestling. Like, okay, Cole Jericho was actually that sort of an outlier in that the execution of that match, and I honestly think the match was sort of, I don't know, kind of ill-conceived. It was just sort of a clunky-ass match. Yeah. But beyond that, a lot of the decisions I think that made Double or Nothing lukewarm to us, uneven's a better word, was sort of the decision-making process behind it. And really, sort of in a macro sense, that's been the issue with AEW, is that there seems to be, and I don't really have like a better word for it, but I can come up with two. There seems to be a lack of like proper continuity. And when I say that, I mean like a through line where a feud will start, it will develop, and then it will come to a normal conclusion within certain conventions of pro wrestling that we've gotten used to. I mean, let's all be frank here. Vince McMahon sort of created the template for the big national weekly television, how you book things. And at its best, it's really damn good. And AEW seems to drift away from certain feuds. They seem to like, I don't know, there seems to be a lack of like through line, and there seems to be a lack of sort of like feud structure, like storyline structure. And so, however, whatever sort of like internal personnel structure that would fix that issue, that would be necessary, is probably what he should have, because it does seem like, as opposed to a dedicated creative staff who will map out, because we've seen in All Access, Tony Khan has his crinkly piece of paper.
This guy's 11 by 14 folded up piece of paper, yeah.
But where on that paper, at what along the way was there like, okay, Keith Lee and Swerve, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, then you're going to do this, and this is how it's going to pay off. It seems like there are things that fall through the cracks. Yep. And that's a situation that I think AEW could be vastly improved. And that's why I had always said this tongue in cheek, but maybe not. Cody Rhodes, a guy who came up in I know you always make a face, but the dude was there next to Tony Khan, and Cody Rhodes came up in weekly television. Like I think, and when you look at when AEW is good, Cody was there. Maybe his own creative wasn't all that stellar, but there did seem to be structure with its creative back then. And I can't help but think maybe with him gone, Tony Khan seemed to think, I could do this, no problem. This is easy. And it's actually kind of not easy.
No, it's not easy at all. It's not easy at all. Yeah, and maybe there is some truth to Cody having some sway over in terms of a larger sense, keeping storylines focused backstage. That's entirely possible. One aspect I thought that Cody probably definitely brought and that might be missing now is, this is all based on Road to the Top, so grain of salt. This could have been all for the television show. But he seemed like one of the guys, if not the guy, people went backstage to talk to with issues. Because they knew that he would listen and that he had Tony Khan's ear. And so maybe if people had issues with their creative, they could talk to Cody about it. Cody relayed that to Tony Khan, and maybe something could be done about it. But nowadays, don't know if there's someone backstage who fills that same role.
Yeah. Who knows? And maybe that's what, Jericho, Danielson, Mox, maybe that was, something that they were filling. But, and it seems like Danielson, I mean, it honestly does seem like because of, the hiring of Will Washington, because it seems like Danielson is taking on more of a creative role. It seems there is some sort of acknowledgement that the way things are going now might not be the best way to go. And even though, if you watch Tony Khan's press conference, you sort of see otherwise, but there did seem to be some amount of self-awareness when he said, I'm always trying to look at my stuff and see how it can be better. So maybe you have like a snarky look on your face.
No,
Do you think there's
I don't know. Maybe part of the additions to the creative team, because he had a whole other 2-hour show he has to book. He's like, all right, this is too much at this point.
Well, yeah, and maybe, hey, look, maybe that'll be sort of a blessing in disguise. It's like, okay, this is too much. I just booked another 2-hour show, and maybe the addition of a guy like Bryan Danielson, who's also had plenty of experience in weekly television, and also a guy, by the way, who seems to want to help build like future wrestlers, Yuta pinning Kenny Omega, maybe that'll have an effect up and down the card. That we'll see some improvements in, but there does need to be improvements, and focusing maybe on rearranging or having a dedicated creative team might help that.
I think it'd go a long way for sure.
Yeah.
Next question here from Cody Martinez. Where do you guys think the Bloodline goes after Night of Champions? So it's Jimmy attacking Roman, the final straw.
Man, where does the Bloodline go from here? That's probably going to end up being the thumbnail because everybody loves Bloodline stuff. So Cody Martinez, good for you. You nailed the thumbnail. Where does it go from here? So, the next pay-per-view, obviously, premium live event is Money in the Bank, July 1st, I think it is, in London. It seems like that there's plenty of time. There's a month. Who knows what's going to happen on SmackDown in 2 days, but you got to have the Usos versus Roman and Solo next. That seems to be the thing. And I know people are going to be like, well, Roman doesn't defend his title. I'll be honest with you. I don't know where you stand on this. I don't give a shit if Roman defends his title or not. If he's in the middle of like the most compelling story in wrestling, those titles can collect dust. I don't give a shit. Plus, we got Seth Rollins with his crotchless pants with his title on Raw. And that looks like $1 million on him, especially when he's got, no clothing on his crotch from Raw the other night. I don't know. We have another world champion. He could defend his a bunch, and Roman Reigns can be in the most compelling story. So I don't know. Money in the Bank. You do Roman and Solo versus the Usos, the big Bloodline blow up. Maybe they bring in Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa or something like that. Hikuleo, I don't know. To boost up to get some fresh blood into the Bloodline. And then at SummerSlam, he's got to defend the title at SummerSlam. Honestly, Jey Uso. Have him defend against Jey Uso at SummerSlam. Let's get the crowd, that crowd behind Jey Uso. And here's the thing. I think that if they do Jey Uso SummerSlam, even though my brain says, oh, he ain't going to be the guy, I have seen the sentiment so often online that Jey should be the guy. They could get me to believe that Jey will be the guy.
I have a solution for you, perhaps.
Okay.
Where Jey gets a win over Roman, but it's not for the title. Hear me out. So obviously Jimmy's done.
Mm-hmm.
He's out. He's done.
Yeah.
Jey's caught in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's still trying to protect his brother. I don't think Jey has a whole lot of allegiance to Roman. I think he's looking out for Jimmy. He doesn't want Jimmy to have to face the onslaught that Roman and Solo are going to bring. So he's going to do everything he can to protect him. At a certain point, there's going to be a breaking point. He has to make the choice. Jimmy or Bloodline, of course, he's going to choose Jimmy. That's his brother. So if we get at Money in the Bank, Roman and Solo versus the Usos, have Jey pin Roman at Money in the Bank in the tag match.
That's good. Yeah,
he'd be the first person to pin Roman.
Yeah,
since the Bloodline began.
Yeah,
and you use that to motivate the title match at SummerSlam. Jey loses. But he gets that. He gets to be the first one to pin Roman, and that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. If they can actually use, the Usos' own the Bloodline strategy if you do bring in a Tama Tonga Loa, something like that, Guerrillas of Destiny, and they can be sort of the new Usos there in the Bloodline. That's what they'll call themselves, the new Usos, the Newsos. And use some of that Bloodline magic against guys who know the Bloodline. But I think they can build Jey up into a guy who I believe he's going to beat Roman, but of course he doesn't, because I still don't think WWE's going to do that. But they can I guarantee they can craft a story to make me believe that come SummerSlam, Jey Uso could win.
And if you have Jey pin Roman in the tag match,
it's a great way to do it. Yeah,
that's a huge way to do it, and it also shows without the full power of the Bloodline, Roman's vulnerable.
Yeah,
he is super vulnerable. And whether Roman by the time SummerSlam rolls around, and whether it's against Jey, Cody, whoever else, kind of brings in some reinforcements for the Bloodline. Well, then you got the story of, how are these new members of the Bloodline going to adjust to life under Roman? Because that shit ain't easy,
And maybe given that they're Guerrillas of Destiny, they bring him in. They're like basically Bloodline mercenaries, kind of. They have a looser connection to the Bloodline. Roman's like, man, I can't. These guys, I'm having a hard time putting them under thumb. They're kind of wilding out, and it used to be the Usos kind of were easy to keep under thumb because we used to hang out as kids, so I could always bring up the emotional manipulation of being family. These guys are kind of crazy out doing their own thing. They're not sticking to the plan, and they sort of don't care when I yell at them. They're just here to get the money.
Yep.
So there's a lot of interesting dynamics that you could play out. And then Survivor Series, of course, doesn't have to be, Survivor Series, dude, could be the Usos and Kevin and Sammy versus the new Bloodline, I mean, that could be a War Games situation at Survivor Series. Head to the Rumble, another Roman title defense against, I don't know who, it could be anybody at that point. And then by that time, Seth wins the Rumble and beats Roman at WrestleMania.
Oh, you got Seth, not Cody, huh?
I don't know. It'll probably be Cody, but I think at this point, man, I don't know. I honestly think it's kind of a toss-up. I think they're going to see where the directions go. Seth keeps on mentioning Roman. He keeps on mentioning Roman. I don't think they're going to do that Survivor Series. I think that's like Seth loses his title and he goes after Roman. And the only way you could do that by crossing brands is through the Royal Rumble or I guess Money in the Bank. Yeah,
but with Seth as champion, I doubt he's going to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match. So
right, yeah.
Seems highly unlikely. Got another Roman Bloodline question here from the Ulysses. Sorry if I got the name wrong. Says, do you think the dominance of Roman's title run is put into question when out of 28 title defenses, he's only won one clean 8 times? No, I don't think it's going to put into question. I mean, we all know that this is all choreographed. The results are predetermined. I think what's going to really stand out about this particular title run is the storyline that motivates it. I think this Bloodline storyline will probably undoubtedly, assuming they stick the landing, go down as one of, if not the best storylines in the history of wrestling. And that's what wrestling's about, is telling stories.
Yeah, for sure.
And if the story continues to develop and be intriguing and emotionally engrossing, and you're captivated by it, and you go into these matches invested in who wins and loses, then they're doing their job right. I mean, there's that spell between probably Rumble and up to Mania where it seemed to be a bit formulaic in terms of how Roman was winning matches, especially.
Sure, yeah.
And I understand that. And that I don't think that has anything to do with the fact of him winning clean or not. I think it was just a lack of creativity, maybe, and how the booking of the finishes went.
Yeah, Michael Hayes doing the same finish.
It was the same finish for 3-4 matches in a row.
Yeah.
But, that's my look at it. That's my take. Other people might think, well, Roman's reign might be a bit more legitimate if he didn't have to rely on the Bloodline so much. But it's that push and pull between all members of the Bloodline, especially in the finish of his matches, when it's done right, that makes the story so interesting.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like you said, the biggest thing is it's all sort of scripted entertainment. And so you look at, I don't know, you can look at characters in sort of the fictional world. Who's the greatest, for example, movie villain of all time? Like Darth Vader? Is it Anton Chigurh? Is it Biff Tannen?
Did people say that Darth Vader won battles using the Force too much?
That's exactly what I was getting at, man. It's like, did Biff Tannen use his own bloodline with his, what was it, like, what's his face? Wasn't Billy Zane in Back to the Future 2 as part of his crew? Yeah. Did he use Billy Zane too much to beat Michael J. Fox and George McFly? I don't think so. It's fictional characters. It's the story, man. That's what matters. It's exactly what you're saying. It's the story that matters. And here's the thing this is the thing that they also actually keep with Roman consistent, is that dude can kick out of anything. He has taken finisher after finisher after finisher, and the one strength that he does have is he will kick out of everything. And so that is, if you want to consider it a character strength that further legitimizes his title run, yes, he uses shortcuts. He uses Solo Sikoa. He uses the Usos. I get that, but it's not like he's a chump.
Yeah.
It's like he has legitimately beaten pretty big opponents. I mean, he lost to Seth Rollins, but only because he was beating the shit out of him too much, you know?
Yeah.
So no, I don't think it delegitimizes anything. It's the fact is, in wrestling, Eddie Guerrero was celebrated as a guy who very creatively cheated to win so many times. And that goes with all great heels. Mm-hmm. It's like you look at a guy like Triple H during his reign of terror. It's like, well, yeah, he used sledgehammers in Evolution, but the guy got it done. And wrestling, in the end, if you can get it done, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of feel like Roman's reign this is an all-time character. It's an all-time story. It is impressive how Roman Reigns, a guy who, if you look at him 5 years ago during his promos, he had zero confidence in his voice. I mean, go back and watch like the Suffer and Succotash promo.
So bad.
It's awful. And that dude has like no sack whatsoever in his voice.
Yep.
These days, he is a commanding, terrifying figure, even when he's not there.
Yep.
When Roman's taking a week off, it's like the specter, the aura of Roman Reigns is terrifying. He is the Godfather.
Yeah.
Talking about Brando, not the fighting machine.
Yeah. He is the Emperor Palpatine. Right.
Exactly. He's terrifying.
Yes.
So no, I think Roman's reign is going to be an all-time one. I mean, honestly, I don't know if John Cena has, because Cena was the guy who would win it and lose it a lot.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if there was an all-time Cena reign. Punk has his 400+ day reign, which was pretty impressive. And that to me is more memorable than any of the individual John Cena reigns, who's widely known as like the best ever.
Yeah.
So I think the reign really makes the guy, I really do. So yeah, man, I think this reign is fine.
It's great. Solid.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Good stuff. Anyways, before we get going with the rest of your great questions, we're going to take a quick break because this episode of Going in Raw is in fact sponsored by BetterHelp. Larson,
Huh.
it can be pretty easy to get caught up in what everybody needs from you, whether it's work, family, or friends. You can spend so much time giving that you start feeling stretched too thin and burned out because you can't find the time to take a moment to think about what you need from yourself.
That's correct. And you know what? When I was in my mid-20s, I had lost that balance, was feeling pretty overwhelmed by life, and started dealing with severe anxiety. And it got to the point where I realized I had to go to therapy. And it took me a few tries to find someone I felt comfortable talking to, but once I did, I learned the tools I needed to better cope with my anxiety. So if you're looking to bring some balance back to your life, therapy can help you learn the tools you need so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. And if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try.
BetterHelp is entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. And all you got to do to get started is fill out a brief online questionnaire, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/raw today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/raw. All right, man, what's the next question?
This one comes from Alex Foster. Alex says, even with the brand split, do you think it becomes a problem if we see the same people every week? I love most of the main event talent on both shows, but I feel like seeing them every week gets repetitive.
Okay, so
let's go back to pre-2016, before the brand split, where you were having on Raw and SmackDown kind of the same roster. They were booking them as Raw, SmackDown super shows, but
yeah, right.
It felt like the same, 25 people were on both shows, leaving the rest of the roster just scant TV time to try to find ways to get into storylines. And so that was like the huge positive of the brand split when they brought back in 2016.
Yeah.
Oh, more opportunities for more people. The branded pay-per-views are up and down because, yes, that's more pay-per-view time for more people at the same time, but each pay-per-view, especially the B-level ones, feel like, kind of like super show editions of the respective shows without really feeling like a pay-per-view.
Yeah. Right.
Once they got back to cross-branded pay-per-views, it didn't seem like as much of an issue. But, yeah, on Raw this week, had AJ Styles make an appearance for some reason. Just wanted to say congratulations to Seth Rollins. And you hope this is an isolated thing. This is something that's going to be happening on a regular basis. You think the point of the draft is to establish separate rosters for separate brands, and a little bit of cross-pollination is all right. But if it gets to the point which we're not quite there yet, but if it were to get to the point where you've got the same 30, 35 people on both shows, well, there's a lot of people on the roster who aren't getting TV time because they're not respecting the brand split or the separate rosters.
Yeah, I hope that AJ this week, and I was fine with AJ because they did sort of motivate it by story. He wanted to come out and say congratulations to Seth Rollins, and who doesn't want to see him team up with Seth Rollins? That's kind of cool. They established him as a SmackDown guy. I know that because they had the SmackDown logo on his lower third.
And he said, supposed to be on SmackDown.
Yeah, and he said that too. So I wonder if, WWE might want to utilize certain stars or certain opportunities to kind of cross promote the two shows. That wouldn't surprise me. It's like, oh, AJ Styles is going back to SmackDown now. That makes me want to watch SmackDown more. Just as a reminder of what's going on over there. If somebody's like, no, I'm firmly a Raw person, which would be weird. But yeah, I do hope that at most it's like an 80-20 split. Look, the tag titles right now are across brands. The Bloodline is a big story, which can sometimes spill into Raw. But I like that the Judgment Day, for example, says we run Raw, and they do still need to figure out. Honestly, I don't even give a shit right now about like the whole Rhea Ripley still SmackDown Women's Champion, Asuka's Raw Women's Champion. They do need to figure that out at some point.
Yeah.
But it doesn't bother me as long as the shit's entertaining. I thought Raw this week was pretty entertaining. And so I didn't really give a shit about that. There are enough people who sort of, the women's tag team, the women's tag champions, Shayna and Ronda. I don't know how that's going to mesh with the NXT women's tag titles, although I sort of suspect that they're simply going to have Shayna and Ronda beat them too, and then just,
Unify,
merge
maybe.
the two titles, unify them, and just sort of forget about the NXT women's tag titles. But they're cross-brand, and so they'll be, across both shows. But beyond that, yeah, keep the roster separate. I thought that, after the last couple of years, especially with Vince in charge, they bent over backwards coming up with, we've got the cross-brand invitational or whatever that shit was.
That was
It was terrible. It's like, just, find story motivations, not silly rule gimmicks. They can use them 3 times a quarter. Well, I'm not going to keep track of that shit. No. That sounds ludicrous.
Yes,
Why?
It is.
Why are they doing that?
Yes. Do we supposed to have a score sheet to keep track of all this?
Right. But when you had Rey Mysterio want to leave one brand for another, or he just wanted to quit the company, and Triple H is like, hey, let me keep you over on this brand. Your idiot son is on this brand, so you'll be fine. And so when they did meet up, it was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. Dom was like, I'm going to go there and see my idiot dad. And he shows up, and it's like, oh, man, this is a confrontation we've been waiting for. Mm-hmm. That's the benefit of having a harder brand split, because you get stuff like that. And I love the story of a guy who's like, I can't handle this. I need to quit. No, just come over to this other brand because that person's not there. There's a lot they can do with the idea of brands that they haven't even come close to exploring that I really wish they would. So yeah, hopefully they keep the brands relatively separate because it just makes for a better product. You mentioned 2016. Go back to 2002 when they did 2002 when they did the first brand split. You get that was a pretty hard brand split.
Yeah.
And you had like the SmackDown 6 for that certain period of time. You had Paul Heyman running one of the brands. You had some competition between writing teams. And I really think that that's sort of the way to go, even though it's clear that those days are behind us.
Largely gone, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, keep them separate.
Yep. Andrew Connolly here says, with the rumors of Punk coming back, do you think that the Elite will let their contracts run out and leave?
Dude, it depends on 2 things. How happy? It depends on one thing. How happy are they? That's what it depends on. I don't think it has to do with, look, if they want to help continue to build this company with their name in it, but they're miserable, guess what? They're not going to give a shit about building anything. They're going to be miserable. I want out of here because this place sucks. I'm not going to be able to happily build up anything because nobody wants to be in a place where you're miserable regardless of what your intentions are. So they will bolt and make a ton of money in WWE. If the Punk experiment works, and by the time the end of the year rolls around, when allegedly, reportedly, their contracts are out and they're happy, and Tony Khan has put them in a good place where they can sort of write their own path and write their own creative and continue on with cool stuff like the Anarchy and the Arena Blackpool Combat Clubs feud. And Kenny Omega gets to wrestle with his buddy Kota Ibushi and et cetera, et cetera. If they're happy and they're making much money, they'll stay. If they're fucking miserable, if their contracts come up a week after Brawl Out 2, another thing happens. Full gear, whatever metaphor they use for full gear, whatever pun they use for full gear. If there's a big blow up there and their contracts come up a month later, guess what? They're done. They're out of there. If they're not happy, they're gone.
Yeah. No, that's what it comes down to, how satisfied they are with their work and where they're working. And if they're happy with their situation there, they'll stick around. If for whatever reason, whether it's Punk related or not, they're not, then I would be surprised they didn't entertain other options. All right, I got a conspiracy theory for you, Steve.
Awesome. Let's hear it. I love conspiracy theories, man.
So, have you heard about the new AEW logo, which just says AEW, no All Elite Wrestling on it?
Shut up. I hadn't heard that. No.
Yeah.
Is it the one that's above like the Collision?
It just says AEW. Crap. It doesn't say All Elite Wrestling. It's the same font, the same design. It just doesn't say All Elite Wrestling.
Yeah.
Maybe they had that designed, ready to roll that out in the event that the Elite don't stick around.
That could be. I think I think that's totally likely. All entertainment wrestling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
do you think they would go the KFC route? I forget what that's called when it no longer stands for something. It no longer stands for.
Oh yeah. I don't remember what that's called either. I don't remember either.
When they're just like, it's like, oh man, look at this. Drew Galloway is AE.
Yeah. He's After Effects. What?
What?
I don't have much else to add. This comes down to their satisfaction, their happiness.
If they're let me throw this one out there for you. Given everything if their contract was up June 1st and they had to make the decision now, do you think they'd stick around?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
I have a caveat on that one.
All right.
I think they would do a short-term extension. They do like a 3-month extension and see, okay, you're bringing this guy back? We're going to see how this works out.
We'll see how
this works out. Yeah, we'll see how his body holds up over 3 months.
Yeah.
I think they'd probably do like a short-term extension or try to do that. And if Tony held their feet to the fire, they'd probably be like, I think they'd probably leave. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Metal Pulse asks, who should beat Orange Cassidy, and should Orange Cassidy go for the AEW World Championship? There's 2 names that should beat Orange Cassidy. They're Miro and Malachi Black.
Yeah.
Those are 2 names on top of my head I feel like should be the ones who are first in line to beat Orange Cassidy.
I think there's, one more name, that's Swerve.
Swerve, yes. I feel like after Swerve, assuming they get to this Keith Lee feud, that's a massive if at this point, if Tony Khan actually books that feud. After that feud, yes, absolutely. But I feel like they, in terms of normal wrestling storytelling, that's the storyline that Swerve and Keith Lee would have to get to before going on for championship gold per se. But I think in terms of immediate names, like you could show up on Wednesday and beat Orange Cassidy.
Yeah,
I would say Miro or Malachi. As far as Orange Cassidy going after the AEW World Title, I'd be surprised. But you look at the metrics that he pops towards quarter hours, YouTube views. If Tony Khan is as much of an analytics guy as we hear, you can't discount the possibility that some point down the line it could happen if there's a continual uptick in Orange Cassidy segments.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
I still say back when it was like a triple threat, Orange Cassidy, Kenny Omega, and Pac, I still say they should have put the title on him for like a week. Because that crowd was so hot for Orange Cassidy. And I kind of appreciate like when ECW used to do that shit. Not when WCW 2000 would have 11 title reigns in 7 weeks, but like, like a 1 week thing. And then the Elite's too overwhelming for him and the Best Friends, and they take it back off him. I mean, they had Christian win the damn Impact title off Kenny Omega back then. But no, that triple threat was a really great triple threat. And I was like, man, that'd be kind of cool, because Orange Cassidy especially then was like super hot.
Yeah.
He's really established something special with this title reign, I think. His ceiling was far greater than I had actually thought it would be 3 years ago. He's still a lot of fun. He really does toe that perfect line of like comedy guy, but also not necessarily comedy guy, like actual fleshed out character. The press conference the other day, the scrum afterwards, when somebody asked him, do you think you're the best wrestler in the world? And he just says, no, not even close. He goes up. He tried to put the title, how like they have that stand for the title in front of, he tried to put it on there, it just slumps over. Oh man. I think you're right. I think there's a couple people who could totally beat him now. But regardless, I want to see him mixed up in the same thing we always say, good stories, that continue to flesh out his character, because if you keep on doing that, then he's going to continue to be compelling and he'll continue to pop those numbers, because the dude is an actual attraction. It really is.
He is. Got a question here from Luis. Luis asks, who is the all-time number 1 Money in the Bank participant, and who would you put in an ideal 8-man Money in the Bank ladder match of anyone all-time? So there's 2 names that stand out in terms of Money in the Bank all-timers. It's Edge.
Yep.
Won the first one, cashed it in, then beat Mr. Kennedy for the briefcase. Cashed in again. Yeah. CM Punk won the Money in the Bank ladder match 2 years in a row.
Okay.
He was at WrestleMania.
Yeah. I'd go with Seth Rollins as my probably like the most memorable actual run. We talked earlier about Reigns and him holding that thing. Seth Rollins was the perfect guy of like, oh, he's ready. Everybody loves him. Everybody wants to see this shit. He was hot. He, betrayed the Shield, won it, and he was carrying around that beat ass, money, because he would be hitting people with the Money in the Bank briefcase. He really took that concept and made the most of it. And so for me, my 2 names are Seth and Edge, because Edge, the guy that cracked, oh, fuck, this guy is sitting there bleeding after a brutal match. I'm going to cash in now. And when that happened, everybody was like, whoa, wait a second. You could do that? Like, this is that you could do that now? And Seth doing it on the largest stage of them all.
Oh, yeah.
WrestleMania was like the best cash in of all time. So, yeah, I'd give it to Seth and Edge. Those would be my names.
All right, we'll do Seth, Edge. We'll do CM Punk. As far as someone who never won Money in the Bank but always put on awesome performances in Money in the Bank, Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah, Shelton Benjamin, yeah.
You know, like the first 3, 4, or whatever, how many he was in, he was always doing awesome stuff. It's a bummer he never won it. As far as more recent names,
a guy traditionally who should have won it was Chris Jericho, because I think it was like his idea. Wasn't it like his idea in the first place, or something like that?
Something like that.
Jericho would have been the perfect Mr. Money in the Bank.
Any other names?
I mean, no. Who's won it recently? Brock with the freaking stupid boombox.
What about Miz? He's had that briefcase twice.
Nah, bro. Nah, worst.
Otis?
Worst. Oh, yeah, best. Oh, yeah. Where's my Otis?
Should have been AJ's.
Oh, here he is. Look at this guy.
Should have been AJ's that year.
Perfect. Look, this is great. Because I got Otis here. And then I used to have a little Money in the Bank briefcase.
Yeah, I know. I remember that.
And then because I won Big Red, I got a Steve here one with the Big Red right here. Look at that guy. The best friends right here. Oh, yeah. The all-time going in Raw moment. Right
I couldn't stand that. That moment made me so upset. Cameron Bordalazzo here asked, was Night of Champions the best Saudi show WWE has done so far?
Oh, shit. I don't know. Maybe? Yeah, probably.
So at Crown Jewel 2021 is when they brought back King of the Ring when Xavier Woods won, and then they had the Queen's Crown, which Zelina Vega won. Main event was, no surprise here, Roman versus Brock.
Yeah.
But we got Becky versus Bianca and Sasha in a triple threat. Big E versus Drew for the WWE title. That's when Goldberg and Lashley had their
that was a good match.
No holds barred match.
That was a good match.
Edge and Seth in Hell in a Cell. That was a very good match.
I mean, the Fiend won the Universal title at a Saudi show, I think.
And then Goldberg beat the Fiend for the Universal title at Crown Jewel too.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Top of my head, probably. You know, there is. It's such a complex thing that like I have no desire to debate here, but there is the juxtaposition of like, you know, the actions of the Saudi Arabian government, what they try to accomplish with this deal with WWE, the sports washing thing. But then you see little mini docs of Sami Zayn, a guy who's finally able to go there and experience a very intense, personal, positive, religious, spiritual thing there, and the reception he gets from the crowd. And it's difficult to sort of, you know, analyze the entire situation without a lot of just sticky, you know, issues.
Yeah.
But to see that side of it anyways, you know, the Sami Zayn going there thing, is really cool from a personal standpoint.
Yeah, both for Sami and Mustafa Ali, who had a similar video package.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. You're totally right about all that. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, because you know we still get comments, oh, you're still supporting these shows. And it's like, it's a little more complex than that. You know, it's like, yes, I understand the ramifications of what's happening here with the corporate deal between the government and the WWE. I am fully aware of that. At the same time, there is a human element with some of the personalities of wrestlers involved, and the ability to go there and do certain things that I think can't be ignored either. So, you know, we do what we can. We do the charity streams. We've raised over $20,000 using these Saudi shows. So it's been a positive for us. So yeah, and then just let the socio-political politics play out, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Elemental Giant here asked, do you think NXT would be better today if it never switched to 2.0?
Oh man.
That's a tough one because I mean, it feels like NXT is kind of in a transitionary phase right now where it's getting a little bit away from what the philosophy of 2.0 initially was less indie wrestlers, more collegiate athletes and will develop them pretty much from the ground up. And now there's this large influx of wrestlers from NXT UK since they shut that down. They've kind of brought, in a way, the spirit of NXT Black and Gold back to this particular iteration of NXT. There's still, some of the collegiate athletes, the Creeds, obviously, are doing really awesome work. And there's several more. But it's right now, it kind of feels like NXT's taken the best of the philosophy of NXT under Triple H and the best of the philosophy under Shawn Michaels, where there's interesting characters. They've kind of gotten away a little bit from the really over-the-top stuff they were trying to do in the initial phase of 2.0. And you get interesting characters involved in not necessarily complicated stories, but logically motivated stories that build the matches, and you are invested in the outcome of who wins and loses. And that at its basics, that's pro wrestling. And like match quality is really good. I haven't watched all of Battleground yet, about halfway through it.
It's a solid show.
3 matches in, they're all really good matches.
Yeah, that Iliad Dijak
was
match
brutal,
is special.
Brutal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. In one sense, I feel like maybe the switch to 2.0 needed to happen, so the vision, the voice of NXT could get a change, because the quality of the matches, especially at TakeOver, were phenomenal from a creative standpoint. Outside of like something like Gargano and Ciampa, it all felt a little too uniform. Now this feels more like NXT UK, which was people walk backstage, they have an interaction, match happens. And based because the characters had such chemistry and such rich history, that was fine.
I think with NXT there was a mystique about it because they were bringing in such interesting names from outside WWE, and that mystique really was, that mystique was something else, and it branded itself as sort of like the critical darling of WWE, the one where you can go and you can get the matches that Dave Meltzer would give 5 stars to, or now Stephen Larson with their star rating system would give 5 stars to. And that is still gone. And I think that was one of the main drawing powers of NXT Black and Gold. It was, the stories might not have been great. The interactions between the characters I thought were decent. But at the end, you just knew, oh, man, we're going to get Andrade versus Johnny Gargano. We're going to get Andrade versus Aleister Black. Holy shit, those are going to be some good matches. And for me personally, and this is a very me thing, one of the main things that's keeping me from really investing too much into NXT, I enjoy it. I think HBK is a hell of a booker. I think he really is. Some of the stuff he does over there is better main roster. Is the presentation of it. It looks like a Nickelodeon show still. It looks cheesy. It looks corny. And I have a hard time buying into any real drama when it looks like that. If they grunge it up, and I'm not saying go back to the NXT Black and Gold days.
You want to be more heavy metal. That's what you want.
Kind of, yeah. When like 3/4, I want it to be, I'll be honest with you, if it looked more like Raw Underground, I would be much more into it. And I say that in a very sort of superficial sense. Just darker, a little grungier, not so like it looks like you're at, you're waiting in line at a Universal Studios ride of some sort, like it just it's ugly to me, and it looks cheap. And granted, back in the day when it was at Full Sail, 75% of your screen was like just black. It was shadows. And I wasn't really huge on that either, but it did give you an atmosphere of we're focusing on the wrestling here. And so that's my main thing, man. Honestly, if they film this differently, if they had it, I don't know, man, what is it, like Defy or Beyond or something, one of them indie feds out there, they shoot it like 24 frames and it looks beautiful, and like they've got like sort of mood lighting in the place and like some colored lights, but otherwise it's really dark but not just pure shadows. If it looked good, if it looked like, I don't know, the same aesthetic as like Fight Club or something, it would be my favorite promotion on the planet, because I think the stories are good, the characters are good, and the wrestling, as you said, is getting a lot better. So I think if it was that aesthetic, this version of NXT would be there for me. It really would be. It's really good. but it looks so cheesy. It's so difficult for me to get into.
Fair enough. We can lightning round a few more questions here. Carlos Manzano here asks, power rank 10 best title designs from any promotion. Just give me your top 3. No particular order.
Okay, dude, I'll be honest with you, man. I might be a big mark, but that WWE World Title, the main one, the black strap, the WWE title,
yeah,
big old logo, but it looks beautiful because it's all in like fake diamonds or whatever it is. I don't know, cubic zirconiums,
rhinestones.
Rhinestones, exactly. It's bedazzled. That's a beautiful looking title. So I'm gonna say that's probably my number one.
All right.
I don't know. Shit, I'm having a hard time coming up.
I mean, if we're talking any belt, number one maybe for me is the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. Not the one now, but the one before they won.
I was just thinking of like current ones.
Current ones. I mean, the AEW World Title is a great looking belt.
Yeah, it's a good title. It's a good. I mentioned this. I like MJF's variation. I like the Triple B.
Yeah.
You know, you can barely make out the Burberry
you can
pattern.
See it. Yeah.
You know, if that's just brown, I don't know. Does anybody have a brown strap belt? That's going to be my number one right there.
Yeah, I don't recall.
If the new World Heavyweight title was all gold and with like a brown strap or even a gold strap, that'd be my favorite title.
And maybe the giant WWE logo slightly less prominent.
I'm all right with that. If it was just not like, if it didn't have like a black back pill.
That would help. If it was just all gold. Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would help a lot. Eddie Brock's Venom. I know we kind of covered this, but we can talk about it briefly. Given AEW Rampage doesn't get the best ratings on Friday night, what are your thoughts about how well Collision will perform on Saturday, given that would be UFC typical run pay-per-view on Saturday and other non-wrestling sporting shows air on weekends? If they can get most of their Dynamite audience, I imagine they'd be very, very happy. But given the time spot, the competition, 600,000 consistently would probably be a good number for them.
So Tony Khan, I think during the press scrum, said that he expects it to do better than preempted episodes of Dynamite that go on Saturdays. And if that's his bar, then I think around 600,000 is probably what that is. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, 600,000 seems to be like, if you're doing less than that, I don't know if that was a great idea.
Yeah, I know. Blake Whitehouse here asks, given how much AEW is inspired by WCW and how rich and how much of a fan of wrestling he is, do you think Tony Khan could ever try to successfully buy WCW property from Endeavor?
Makes things a little bit different with the Endeavor deal.
Yeah.
But Vince, I think Vince would probably still have the yay or nay on that one.
I would think so.
No, I don't think he would. I think that's probably too messy. It's probably too messy because there was like crossover. No, I don't think so. I don't think they would ever allow that. No, I think it's a valuable property that they can continue to monetize, and that's what they want, the IP.
Exactly. I mean, they do that all the time in NXT specifically because they still brand, whether it be premium live events or special episodes of NXT, around old WCW pay-per-views.
Yeah, and then they still have they're able to license out programs to A&E, biographies with all those tape libraries. Yeah, no, I don't think that's going to happen.
I think it would complicate things quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Timor here asks, of all the stadiums in the world, which stadium would you pick to host ACW's first ever stadium show?
Ooh, oh man, I don't know about you, but I would I'd try for that Wembley also, man. I'd go to London. Or a stadium up in Scotland. I actually preferred my time at Edinburgh.
You know what?
A stadium in Edinburgh.
We live in the Sacramento area. Hughes Stadium.
Okay, yeah.
In Sacramento for the first ACW show. It's got to be in Sacramento. Come on.
All right, fair enough.
Come on.
Trying to think big. Worldwide, man. Whoop, whoop.
Well, baby steps. You got to start small sometimes. Pacific Caleb asks, what are your favorite out there fast food items like the KFC Double Down? Oh, it's the Frito burrito. We never thought about putting the chips inside a burrito.
Yeah, that was a smart move Frito burrito. That was a smart move.
Let's see here. Just another, I think this is Craigsman, asks, which dream matches featuring Golden Age / Attitude Era wrestlers versus modern day wrestlers would you like to see? The example provided here is Honky Tonk Man versus Jeff Jarrett. Macho Man versus this current iteration of Seth Rollins. Give me that.
Oh, that's good. I'd want to see Gunther versus Andre the Giant.
Interesting.
I think Andre would have some killer chops.
Yeah.
He'd have
Giant
some,
hands.
Giant hands, yeah.
Let's see. Chris Maloney asks, is there any way to destroy Cody Mantium? I mean, if it's like the splints you go to the store and buy, you just take the piece of metal out. It's about an inch wide. And you can just bend that. You bend enough, it's broken.
I mean, in kayfabe, that seems to not be the case, though. Cody Mantium is perhaps, up there with Vibranium in terms of one of the most, because it's like when Brock would hit him, he would have all that, all the kinetic energy. He would send it back to Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
So can anything break it? Not of this world.
Let me ask you this. What's the melting point? Because if you get hot enough, maybe you got a chance there.
I'm thinking like, the center of like a white dwarf star.
Okay.
Or like a blue. I know like the cooler the cooler the color of the star, the hotter it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the core of
a star, pretty much. Yeah, that'd be pretty hot.
I don't think stars have cores.
Well, they have
some
centers because it's all super hot in the center. Yeah. So like if they did an Inferno match, not hot enough.
No. All
right.
Pedestrian fire? I don't think so.
Well, I mean, I had to ask the question.
Yeah, no.
Bucket Dipper here asks, how would you properly book a title that's constantly switching hands? A TNT title seems to be solidly Wardlow's for the near future, but would love to hear how you book like a hot potatoing a title like the TNT title.
I always liked your idea of the network title where like you're sitting there watching Peacock and then all of a sudden like your screen, it takes over your screen. You're like, man, I'm trying to watch Night Court here. And then it's like, oh my God, this, guy's about to lose his titles. He's grabbed the camera guy.
Match. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's like, what is this wrestling shit? I'm not into this fake crap. I like UFC and I'm trying to watch my Quantum Leap right now.
Well, you just quantum leapt into a wrestling match, man.
Right. Exactly. Appreciate.
Yeah, TNT or the network title would be awesome.
That'd be great.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. Somebody make it happen. Any more questions?
That's all I got.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Once again, if you want to have your question read here on Ask Going in Raw every Wednesday, patreon.com/Steven Larson, or click join on the YouTube, youtube.com/Steven Larson. Thanks everybody for hanging out. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.